Welcome to Fantasy Filmball. My name is Dylan. Today's a pretty exciting day because it's the day I got to see Wuthering Heights, the newest film from Emerald Fennell. And first off, I do want to apologize about getting this review out to all of you a few days late. A little bit of an emergency popped up the other day, and I wanted to go into this movie with a clear and an open mind, and Monday just didn't really work for me at the press screen. But if you do know me, you know that this has been one of my most anticipated titles of all of 2026. That Fall in Love trailer is one of the best trailers I've seen of recent memory, and this film just missed out on being in my top 10 most anticipated films as a whole. But before we can dive inside today's review of Wuthering Heights, if you're new here to Fantasy Filmball, on this channel we talk about award season year long. We come to you with movie reviews just like this, and we have on the ground festival coverage, Cannes, TIFF, New York, and all of these various different regional film festivals. If that sounds interesting to you, consider dropping a subscription. It helps the channel continue to grow. And if you've seen Wuthering Heights so far, comment down below. What did you think on this movie? Because the first thing I want to talk about with Wuthering Heights is the writer and director herself, Emerald Fennell, because she truly just drives me mad. Promising Young Woman was such a promising start for a brand new filmmaker, headlined by an outstanding lead performance by Carey Mulligan, a screenplay that always felt one step ahead of its audience, and a bold, distinctive directorial voice, unlike anything we had really seen before. However, her next film, Saltburn, was basically the polar opposite experience for me. I found Barry Keoghan's lead to be a massive miscast. He just didn't pull off the likability I feel like that character needed. He was very repelling at times and didn't really hit those narrative beats that you would want from a character inside of a story like that. But you could also place a lot of those blames onto the screenplay, which felt messy and unoriginal, pulling from things that we had seen before, not only in an ununique way, but also in a pretty bland and uninteresting way. And I would say those same adjectives goes over to Fennell's direction as well inside of Saltburn. Overall, it was just a massive miss for me, one of my least favorite movies of that year, and one of the few redeeming qualities of Saltburn would be Jacob Elordi's supporting performance, which I found him to be pretty charming. In fact, that really kicked off this sort of like renaissance for Elordi as an actor, at least for me, because he's shown how amazing he can be in these last few years. Obviously, this year we have Frankenstein, where the man could win an Oscar and is the best part of a film that is just a technical juggernaut. I've already mentioned Saltburn before, but then there's Priscilla, which he brought a whole new depth to the King of Rock. And I do want to start with the positives, because Fennell clearly has this unique eye behind the lens. Whether it's the dreamy dollhouse-like sets or the fairy tale visual aesthetic of the cinematography, Wuthering Heights is a gorgeous film to look at. Your eyes yearn for the grand spectacle in full force, but at the same time, your mind kind of wants to drift to somewhere else, because just like Saltburn's messy plotting or some of the lack of the attention to detail of the ensemble of Promising Young Woman, you really don't care about a lot of these characters, which could be a little controversial to say, because at least for me, Kath and Heathcliff are very compelling as children, but once they age into our main stars, their dynamic feels a little bit off. Like, yeah, Jacob Elordi, Margot Robbie, these are two unbelievably beautiful human beings who are as perfect to look at as this movie is as a whole, but their chemistry just doesn't really resonate with me. I found Robbie's portrayal of Kath to kind of fall in line with Barry Keoghan's in Saltburn. Again, it's a protagonist that just doesn't resonate with me as an audience member. Whining, making the wrong choices, hurting everyone close to her. I get it's the story beats, but when it's again and again and again, and there's nothing really pulling you to want to root for her, it's kind of hard to be fully engaged into the story. And on the other hand, we have Heathcliff, who remains a mystery. And again, to point this back to another one of Fennell's films, it's like Elordi and Saltburn. You admire the mystery, but you fail to resonate with the reality at large. Dive in deeper with the rest of this ensemble here. Hong Chau is an actress who never really gets her flowers, and once again, she's doing her best here as Nellie, but this role almost has no depth. Like, we get she's jealous because of her childhood and her connection with Kath, but we never really see that explored throughout the rest of her life, and we see her do things, but we don't really understand the full reasoning behind that, and that can also extend out to Kath's husband, Edgar. Like, we get he cares about her, we get that he's jealous of Heathcliff's involvement, but we never really see how like that shift affects him over time, or the dynamics adjust in a meaningful way. We just see one moment he's all in, and the next moment he's kind of all out. And honestly, to continue the little, I guess, controversial takes here, the most compelling character might be Isabel. Like, can we get that woof woof out here? But Fennell is a very divisive filmmaker. We've seen the polar opposite reactions to her previous films with audience at large. I'm very much an embodiment of that, loving one, not loving the other. But with Wuthering Heights, I opened up Letterboxd. The first thing I saw is one friend give it a half star, another friend give it 5 stars. Like, that is cinema to me. Think of that Martin Scorsese meme. I think movies like this should be encouraged because they're provocative. They start a conversation. It feels fresh and visually unique. But my main reservation with Wuthering Heights is that while it's doing all of that visually and aesthetically, at its core, it feels like it's something that we've seen a million times before. The classic period romance where two people are perfect for each other, but like they don't realize it until it's too late, and by then there's nothing they can really do. I also think a lot of people are heading into Wuthering Heights with some negative energy built up, whether it's Fennell's track record, the type of movie that this is at its core, or even the casting of its 2 leads. I am a massive fan of both Margot Robbie, Jacob Elordi, as I said before. I've really enjoyed the work they've done here in recent years, but like, this is not them at the top of their game. I've seen the complaints online that Robbie is too old to play Kath, since in the novel she is a woman just beginning her adulthood journey, and on the flip side, Heathcliff is described as a man of color, which, I mean, look up Jacob Elordi. He's very tall, he's very attractive, but he is not a man of color. I think it would be very compelling to see another filmmaker who maybe is a little bit more focused take on this story with a more novel-accurate casting, but I don't think that alone is a reason to mean the film that we got. At the end of the day, Wuthering Heights ultimately does come undone in a messy but a vividly compelling way. It's one that I think if you're interested, if the trailer is compelling, you should go out to see. But I can also see a large portion of the audience kind of being repelled by the movie because, one, it's not really what the promos have suggested. It's not 50 Shades of Grey, but looking so dreamy and visually aesthetics. It's more of a dark, sad romance, and it's something that I feel like some people will eat up and others just won't really care about. And I guess the last thing I want to talk about with Wuthering Heights is there's been so much promo, so much conversation about Charlie XCX doing the movie for this movie. Chains of Love is an absolute banger, but the rest of her songs I don't feel like really work inside the movie. And even Chains of Love, when that needle drop happens inside the film, you're kind of just like, this is the song's a banger, but like it feels oddly placed inside this movie. Fennell clearly is a provocateur, so like it makes sense for her type of films, but going to something I talked with my girlfriend on our walk with home last night, going to the costume design, like she's pulling from so many different eras to make this story feel timeless, but also you're seeing a dress from this time period, then a dress that's very much more modern, then you have something very, very old, and sometimes too many clashing visual styles can be more of an overload than an overlust. But this is an awards channel at the end of the day, so let's talk some Oscar prospects about Wuthering Heights. And this can be my first L of the season if you're a member of our Discord channel, which you can join in the link down below. I was propelling the idea of what if Wuthering Heights could be this breakout box office sensation, translating over to award success, potentially being a player in the tech and craft categories. And if it's that strong, could it be a player for like screenplay or one of the actors? We saw Fennell's first movie, Promising Young Woman, be an all-around Oscar contender, and then we saw Saltburn being a film that was in the conversation but ultimately missed out at the end of the day due to how divisive it was. And yeah, this kind of seems like Saltburn 2.0, just unlike Saltburn being the conversation for like, let's say, costumes or cinematography or screenplay or Elordi. That film came out in like November. It also was Amazon MGM's #1 push of that season. This film comes out in February, and it's also going to be Warner Brothers' like 3rd or 4th or 5th priority this year, and I just don't really see them giving this film the campaign it probably needs. They have Digger coming out later this year. They have Dune Messiah, Dune Part 3, whatever they're calling it, coming out later this year. And I'm sure they'll have other giant Oscar prospects on the table. So like, yeah, I think the cinematography, the production design, the makeup and hairstyling, I've seen people shout the costume design as well as all being technical highlights inside this film. I just don't think the conversation is gonna last that long throughout the year. But that brings us to the conclusion of our review of Wuthering Heights. If you made this far inside the video, if you haven't already, consider dropping a like. It helps the channel continue to grow. A subscription keeps you up to date with everything that we're doing here on Fantasy Filmball. In the next few weeks, Matt and myself will be having predictions for the BAFTA Awards, the Actor Awards, our final Oscar predictions, as well as giving you more reviews of all the films and, you know, the award season sphere. But I think I've yapped for quite enough here today. My name's Dyl. This has been Fantasy Filmball. Peace.